Hey everyone, this is Lorenzo from Hacking Your Leadership Podcast, and welcome to another Thoughtful Thursday episode. In this week's episode, I want to talk about a performance and feedback conversation I overheard at a Starbucks the other day. So, for those of us in retail, there are many times the only place you can have performance conversations or touch bases in general are in food courts or coffee shops. Many retailers don't even actually have an office. Sometimes it's just a desk with a computer and a phone in the back of a warehouse somewhere. So, it is very often that you see many of these conversations happening, including even interviews and things like that. So this was nothing new. I was just sitting in a Starbucks working on something on my computer when a district manager and a general manager sat near me and began dialogue about a very specific opportunity. And I began taking notes as I thought this would be something I could discuss on the podcast. So as the district manager started the dialogue with, hey, I wanted to have a conversation with you about some of the new employees and the fact that they have shared that they feel that their onboarding did not go well and that they didn't feel connected with you as the general manager. And I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that. And then what happened was excuses, deflection, not necessarily owning what was going on and that type of deal. Where it really started to take a turn for the worst was then this district manager said, okay, well, you do know that a part of being a general manager is that you're supposed to make sure that the onboarding is good and that they're clear about what their job is and what you expect from them. And then it was kind of like well, yeah. And then there was a question of, well, like, what did you do or didn't do in regards to the expectation of the company when it came to their onboarding? So it was like a lot of this back and forth dialogue where it was clear that the district manager was trying to get the general manager to basically admit out loud that they failed at this and that it was unacceptable and that they should have done a better job at this. But instead, it was kind of like poking and prodding and pointing out all the things that they could have done to not have this issue, instead of just saying, well, this was the issue. That's not okay. How do we move forward and commit to not let this happen again? Even to the point where this district manager pulled out kind of a binder that had some of the onboarding expectations and, used some language like, well, have you used this before with people when they onboard? And the general manager was like, well, no, not really. I didn't know that we were supposed to. And the district manager was like, well, we really haven't used it in a long time, but there's some really good tools in here. So basically like admitting to the general manager that the district manager hadn't done their job. So it was just in my opinion, just a train wreck of a conversation that really didn't have any type of alignment, no commitments and things like that. There was even a point where the district manager said, well, like, these are the things that, and I didn't catch the name, but so-and-so is really looking for, and like we just got to make sure that we're doing these things right because, I'm checking up to make sure that if he was here, that he wouldn't see these things, that you wouldn't get in trouble. So basically kind of like, now I'm just doing my job to make sure that you don't get in trouble for not doing your job, and just all the wrong stuff. And it made me think about, how is it that people prepare for these types of conversations, and what are the things that you should or shouldn't do when having this level of dialogue? So I took kind of a bunch of notes and I boiled it down to three things. So the first thing is, when providing feedback or highlighting negative specific behavior, ask the person about the subject or result and allow them to share their feelings about it. If they acknowledge it as an opportunity or poor result, it allows you as their direct boss to agree and move quickly to commitments to improve. So if I say, hey, how has onboarding been with the new employees? And if this general manager says, oh, well, to be completely honest with you, it's been tough. I haven't had a chance to connect with them. They kind of got thrown in there. I've been busy with these other projects. Now, as a district manager, you can say, okay, well, I'm glad that you've recognized that because I also agree that their onboarding is below expectation. I appreciate that you've recognized that. How can we avoid this happening in the future? So it allows you to agree with them when they have seen it or they have highlighted it themselves. If they do not, recognize the opportunity or poor result, then you can ask more questions to help get them to it. So it is important that if you're working in a positive environment where you're trying to build culture and you want your general managers or direct reports to be able to improve on behaviors, you've got to be able to help guide them to find the answer and then be able to agree with them to then play your role, which is helping support them to get better. The second thing is do not borrow authority. So if you're providing any type of negative specific feedback, base it on personal observations and avoid language like the team has said, or I have heard, or it's not me, it's so and so, or this is a company thing and I have to get better too. Anytime that you're borrowing authority or taking it from somewhere else, it's not helpful at all because it loses the personal connection element. It makes it seem as if you're the one, as the direct leader, you're not in charge, you're not aware, you're not doing your role of making sure they're doing their job. And it's very hard to, push the conversation in a different direction if you're giving examples and observations that you have either seen personally or talked to them about previously, because those are things that you can speak to versus saying that this is what you've heard or other people have said. And then the third thing is be conscious of not over-aligning or providing excuses up front. I hear this a lot, people saying things like, I know this is tough and it's one more thing that you have to do, or I know you've been working hard and I'm sure you just missed this, or it's been really hard for all of us recently. When you preface this type of dialogue with excuses or trying to make it seem like it's okay that this is an opportunity, you're kind of allowing them to skirt the fact that they were below expectations and they didn't achieve what they were supposed to achieve. So in summary, being prepared for these conversations, allowing the other person to provide their thoughts first, and only speaking to personal observations or previously agreed to commitments will definitely help to make these talks much more efficient and productive. And hopefully this will help and you won't have any train wrecks in any public places where people like myself will eavesdrop and listen into how you are acting as a leader and if you are actually providing somebody with really good perspective and or feedback to allow them to develop into a better leader. So thanks again for listening to this episode. Please follow us on Instagram at Hacking Your Leadership. And as always, share your favorite episode with someone who may find value in it. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you all next time.